Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Terry Manion. Terry is an icon in our industry. He's been organizing incentive travel for many years. He is the immediate past president of the Scythe Foundation, and we share with us some of the insight of a recent survey that they've been doing. Enjoy my conversation with Terry. Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the Business of Meeting podcast. And today, I am delighted to speak with Terry Manion. Terry is an icon in our industry, specifically in the incentive world, because he had a company that he just sold. He is the immediate past president of the Scythe Foundation. So anything incentive travel, anything meetings, you really want to talk with Terry, which is why I'm happy to see you on Zoom today, Terry. How are you?
Very good, Eric. You?
Very good. Remember last time we met face-to-face was an epic ice hockey game in Vegas, right?
That was very enjoyable with some interesting fan interaction.
Absolutely, yes. That's the least we can say. And we're there with several friends, including Moon, who was on the podcast as well
Exactly.
a few weeks ago. So today we're going to speak about your career. We're going to speak about the Scythe Foundation, and we're going to speak about the new research that you have some already exclusive hints for us to share. But first thing first, what is your story? What is Terry Manion's story?
Well, it depends on how much time we have, but probably a lot like many of the people in our industry. It wasn't necessarily something that, as a kid, you're growing up saying, I want to be an incentive travel third-party owner. I mean, we didn't know what that was. So we couldn't really dream about it. We wanted to be firemen or hockey players or football players or whatever it might be. But as high school ended, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went off traveling. And it was kind of there that I got that bug, working in Switzerland in hotels. And then came back and pursued a business administration college course, along with travel and tourism, a 2-year diploma course. And that was really the start of it. Just meeting people along the way. I drifted into the incentive travel side of things. It wasn't really a plan. And then worked for 10 years for a Canadian company that was very heavily involved in Scythe. You'll hear more about Scythe in a minute, which kind of got me involved in that very early on. And then after 10 years of being a salesperson for them, I moved to co-partner in Meridican Incentive Consultants, and that was from 1995 through to 2019. We sold to Creative Group in 2019. I stayed on with them for just a little over a year and a half in kind of a transition role, and then departed there last May of 2021, and started Inspire Consulting, which it's sort of a semi-retirement piece right now, helping young businesses or mature businesses that are just looking to grow in some ways, and trying to shelter them from some of the mistakes we made along the way. I don't think anybody goes through a career perfectly, and it's sometimes those mistakes that are the greatest learnings. So we try to help with that.
As Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they got punched in the face.
Punched in the face, exactly.
Well, we share common love for travel, not common ownership, but I also had my own incentive house back then in Belgium, and the love of travel, the love of unique experiences. What are some of the most memorable experience that you created, you remember, that people are still talking about it today?
Well, there's a lot of them, and I shouldn't take credit for the creation part because, early on we did everything, but as the company grew, there were a lot of other talented people that did the creation of the incentive program. So I'm probably going to mention a few that came out of other brains, but, and they're not, some of these, not necessarily things that others haven't done, but they are the things that people talk about, taking over the Sistine Chapel for, a cocktail party,
Wow.
Exclusive use of that is something that, people talk forever about because they just didn't think it was even possible. Some of the, safari experiences. And I've got to tell you, if anybody listening to the podcast today gets an opportunity to go to Rwanda and see an incredibly beautiful country, but walk with the gorillas. It's not an inexpensive option, but it's a life-changing in my mind. We did a lot of creative stuff. Any Canadians who might be listening to this would know what the Coureurs de Bois were. They were, that's French for men of the woods. And we were north of Montreal, and we created a Coureurs de Bois Day, which we were just in an open field with, there was a grove of trees there. We had axe throwing. We had, how quickly people could cut through saws. We had people starting fires on the beach. It was kind of a survivor type thing, but going back to what these Coureurs de Bois of the day would have had to do, portaging through, this crazy course, gutting fish, and how quickly you could actually gut 10 and clean 10 trout was being measured. Now, we did use all the fish, by the way, at that lunch, so it wasn't just a total massacre of fish.
Right.
So it's just things like that, throughout the years, you just tried to be as creative as possible. Car rallies.
Now, you just mentioned that you sold your business in 19. Some of the people that I'm coaching, I hear always it's almost a quote. They say, "Oh, I want to retire in 5 years. So I want to sell my business in 5 years." And my question is always, "What's your number?" And they go, "What do you mean?" I say, "What's your number? How much you need to live? How much you have today? How much you want to sell the business? How do you prepare the business for that?" So in your case, was it always something that was in the back of your mind, or do you systematically prepare to sell the business after certain years? Or was it, I have a great business, I'm running it well, and if the opportunity comes, then great?
It's a little bit of all of those in a way. That last one with, we have a good business, and if you continue to run a good business, we were fortunate to be debt-free, tremendous staff, loyal clients. And that's the start. That's a business that looks attractive. So you've got to run a good business to begin with. We did go, probably 10 years ago and get the business assessed based on, a 5-year view of our revenues and profitability. And that showed us that we weren't ready to sell yet because we thought it was worth more, or we could get it to be worth more. So having an assessment like that's not a bad idea, because then you get an impartial view of what the business world might value your business at. And you might find out things that you thought were a given that, no, you need to really be able to prove this in a different way. So we did do a little bit of work. As far as having a date, we were approached several times. It really came down to the right buyer showed up. Yes, I'm semi-retired now, so the price was in the area that we wanted it. But it was more about making sure that the culture and the type of company that we sold to would be similar to, and as much of a way as you could, to what we had built. And that just presented itself in probably 2018. It took us through till late 2019 to actually have the deal done.
Yeah, it never happens in 2 months, right?
No.
So you are another example of an overnight success that took 10 years in the making, right?
Yeah, about 30, 40 maybe.
So throughout your career, you're busy, you're traveling, you're managing team, and then you sell the business. And then what? Because I have a lot of my friends who sold their business that were not necessarily involved in the acquiring company anymore. And people said, "Oh, the first year I hadn't prepared for that, and I was kind of depressed." What happened to you?
That's a great question. And I was fortunate. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Scythe Foundation, but I was fortunate that in the year that I retired, I was president of the Scythe Foundation. So it was something that I could sink my teeth into. Typically, that's it's a volunteer position, but it's typically a volunteer position by someone with a very full, real life job, where I was able to spend a little bit more time on it, probably because of the fact that I retired. Without that, however, I could definitely see that depression thing, or just frustration, perhaps. It's amazing how you don't think you need to feel wanted, but when you don't have employees and you don't have clients, and it's wow, the phone's not ringing. There's not somebody asking for a meeting. Sorry, the noise in the background. So I could see that, and I think it's wise to have a plan. Both my wife and I, Tracy and I, went to a service, basically, someone that we referred to us, that she calls it rewirement as opposed to retirement. And, we filled out a number of profile surveys as to what you might be able to do in your retirement years, what you're good at, what you might be interested in, to give you an idea of something to do after. So I think it's important to prepare, because I'd heard all the stories of depression and thought, well, that won't be me. I'm a pretty optimistic person. I'll be busy. But there are definitely days where it's like, I'd like to be busier.
So somebody said that, and actually all the people I know that are retired, they are more busy than before, which is why they call it re-tired.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to talk about Scythe, and my last question before that.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get your days busy now, and what about travel, and what about deciding with whom, how, and where you work?
Yeah. Well, I'll take the last one first. So far, it's not quite a year, 10 months of Inspire. Initially, I didn't really go out and do a whole lot because I was busy with the foundation and honestly just needed the break from, the grind that the 40 years prior to that had been. But since then, all of the business that I'm working on now has come through referrals, through former clients, who may have children that are starting businesses or have friends who are growing businesses. I'm not really actively out there. If you try to find an Inspire Consulting website, you will struggle. I don't have one. It's all word of mouth right now. Because I didn't want to get to that tired part, to be so busy. There was a reason to retire. Some of your other questions as to where I'm traveling, and well, right now I'm sitting in Cabo. We decided to come down here for 9 weeks to get out of the Canadian winter. We did that just in time because they got a huge dump of snow about a week ago, and more today, from what I understand. So that's one thing. And then, given COVID, we've got a lot of trips that we planned in 2020 and 2021 stacking up on top of themselves. So personally, there's a lot lined up. There's Kilimanjaro, we're climbing in September.
Nice.
2 golf trips that have backed up onto each other, one in Ireland and one on the east coast of Canada, going to the Masters this year, which was a 2020 plan that's just been put off forever. So there's a lot stacking up. And who I travel with, other than the golf trips, which are buddies from way back in high school days, my wife, Tracy, and I are the ones that will be doing all those other things that I mentioned.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you've been, as you said, in the transition, professionally speaking, you were president of the Scythe Foundation. So for those who, and I don't know how that's possible, but for those who would not know what Scythe is, can you just explain a little bit, and also the role of Scythe Foundation?
Certainly. So Scythe, the association, it's a Society of Incentive Travel Excellence. So it's a membership organization that those in the incentive travel world, whether they be a third party like I was, or a hotelier, a DMC, an airline, tourist board, et cetera, any of the gifting company, anybody affiliated with incentive travel can be members. And I strongly recommended it. It's not, it's one of the best networking pieces in the incentive travel side. And there's no real association that focuses just on incentive travel. There are groups who look at incentives, but that's gift cards, all merchandise, all kinds of things. This is focused primarily on incentive travel, and is different than the NPIs and IRFs and PCMAs in that way. All of those being great organizations as well, but Scythe is valuable if you're in the incentive travel business. The Scythe Foundation is the arm of the of Scythe that is really our primary role, although we forget it sometimes. But our primary role is fundraising. And so we have a number of events throughout the year and a number of other vehicles in order to raise funds, which we then use to fund research projects, scholarships, grants. Supporting the professional development within the industry world. Some of those things that we fund, you'll see, are promoted by Scythe, the certification programs of CIS and CITP. They are membership and even non-member available certification programs. But the dollars that we've raised throughout the years are what's funded those for Scythe. So we do work very much and tightly with Scythe, but we work, outside of Scythe as well with some of the scholarships and research projects that we do.
Yeah, for those listening who have heard the term incentive travel, because obviously you and I have been organizing a lot of incentive travel in our career, the way I was always defining it is, first, people cannot put a price on what they are experiencing. Two, they need to experience contrast, like you're going to the opera of Budapest with red carpet and all the paparazzi and everything, and the next day you're in Trabant in jeans going into the country cooking goulash. And
Yep.
Third, and most importantly, participants have to experience moments that they cannot duplicate if they're going back with their family or with their friends to the same place. And that's where you create the incredible added value and motivation for cooperation, and which is why it's used by a lot of companies with amazing effects on their bottom line, but most importantly as well on the motivation of people that want to participate in that. So when you say that Scythe Foundation is funding research, what type of research is it funding, and what is the objective of that research, especially considering that it's important for the industry to go out and to prove to the outside world the value of what we do?
Yeah, there's a number of vehicles that we use, and I'll touch on going out to the rest of the industry as my last point on the research. But we do the incentive travel index each year. We put that off in 21 because there wasn't a whole lot happening with incentive travel due to COVID. But we will have that back again in 22. And that is more of a survey to the membership, to anyone in the incentive travel business, just to kind of gauge on what has happened as opposed to looking forward to what might happen. Now, you'll make assumptions from the data as to what might be trends going forward, but most of it's just a look at, hey, what has happened? Budgets, locations that are popular, the types of inclusions within an incentive program that may have changed or risen in popularity over time. I mean, 20 years ago, we weren't speaking a whole lot about sustainability or talking a whole lot about, building a school in Mexico and you've got a group there, that sort of thing. That's grown since the early 2000s and is a real big piece of, everybody wants to do some kind of socially constructive event on a program. So it's seeing those things grow year to year and just making sure that our audience knows it. That's the Incentive Travel Index. We've done, especially last year, we did what we called corporate insights, where we went out to the corporate buyers of incentive travel. So those that would be working for an insurance company or any company and planning their incentive travel programs. They're not in the C-suite. They're not the directors and CEOs and CMOs. They're the actual event planners. Mm-hmm. And we're asking them how they were reacting to and getting through COVID, whether it be all of the force majeure things that were changing in legal stuff. So we had a series of questions. The same crowd was interviewed 2 or 3 times so that we would get consistent and see the trends there. And most recently, to the last point of talking to the rest of the world that may not know about incentive travel, we have conducted close to 40 interviews, I think it's 39 exactly, of C-suite and director level incentive travel users. So these aren't the people that are calling the hotels and the airlines and booking the event. Mm-hmm. This is the CEO who knows what incentive travel does for their bottom line, and far more than the bottom line, culture, growth, and on all of those intangibles that go along with incentive travel. We wanted to interview them. We've completed that just at the end of December, and we're now in the process of putting together the report on everything we heard from those 39 director level users of incentive travel. We want to take that information, put it into white papers, just blog pieces, use snippets of it as quotes here and there. Have panel discussions with possibly some of these people at different events, perhaps IMEX or that sort of event throughout the year, and then really try to get it into publications that the business world looks at. Mm-hmm. A CEO is not reading they might be reading Condé Nast because they're going to go on their own trip, but they're not reading meetings and incentive travel magazines.
Absolutely.
So we want to get it into the Forbes of the world and that type of thing, get that message out there. So a CMO who has heard of incentive travel, but has not used it yet because they're a little bit gray on how, or is it really that effective? What does it impact? They will have that concrete information from their peers, not from us, not from those that benefit from them using it, but from their peers who are currently using it. So that first round is wrapping up. And then we should have probably in the next 2 to 3 months you'll see the marketing of that going out in different ways.
Any insights you can share with us today?
I'll steal a little. It's
I won't tell Parek that you've done this.
That I've given I printed off a couple of things. Sorry, I'm leaning back here, and obviously misplaced it as soon as I needed it. Some of the pieces that are not a surprise, Eric, that you would know, and I would think even some non-users of incentive travel have heard that it's a great sales growth tool, and that's perennially been what it's been used at. And I'd say not without exception, but for the most part, 35 out of the 39 that we interviewed primarily use it as a sales motivator. So, I'm going to set your target for the year, whether you're a dealer, whether you're a salesperson, a distributor, whatever area of my channel that I want to motivate, and I'm giving you a target. So I'm a furniture manufacturer and you're a dealer in Boise, Idaho. And I'm going to look at your numbers, look at your region, say, Eric, I think you can give us more of a share of your business. And if you hit this number, you and a significant other or friend are going to come with us to Rome or Hawaii or Arizona or wherever the budget might allow. And so you're driven to raise your sales. There are mechanics within an incentive travel program that allow you to target certain products. I might say, you know what, we really want to push our chair line of this furniture manufacturer because that's our most profitable area of business. So we're going to inflate the points that Eric will get if he has a good mix of chair sales in there. I'm just making stuff up as I go here. However, one of the other things is retention. Top salesperson retention, top dealer loyalty, distributor, it isn't always distributor retention because I think if you're going to use them, they're happy to be your client. But, it just creates a level of communication that you don't get without living together for a week or 5 days in Budapest, as you just said. You also have that group of top-end salespeople or dealers together. So best sharing, practice sharing, setting up focus groups that might last the whole year, long after the trip, where these people can share. I listened to one of the interviews yesterday, and one of our clients was saying, was actually one of my ex-clients, was saying, without incentive travel, there's a guy in Seattle who never would have met someone in New York, and now they talk all the time about their businesses. And they help each other along the way. We're not even aware of the conversations. And then it's the great spread of culture, and it's a great opportunity for leadership to listen to and communicate with their top people.
Yep.
Those are some of the very tangible, not always measurable to the dime, but tangible benefits of incentive travel. They're not, as I say, they're not relatively new. I think we've known about that, but all of these interviews are hammering home how successful those are for them.
Anything that surprised you in the interview you've listened to right now?
I was a little surprised, and I'll even say disappointed, that more haven't used incentive travel for non-sales motivation. There's a simple answer to why. It's not as easy to track.
Right.
However, most positions within a company have some form of metrics that you're measuring to know whether they're a good employee, good HR person, good part of the supply chain team. There are metrics. And if you have felt that those metrics are important enough to drive your business, you value those metrics. You can't necessarily put a price on it based on you sold this product for this margin. But there's, if you were building incentive programs with those metrics involved, you're driving best practices. You're driving the behavior that you want
Yes.
or you wouldn't have had those metrics in place. So I was surprised that more hadn't done that, but also happy to hear that many are looking at it. They just need the Terrys and Erics of the world, and there are many good companies out there that can do this, to help them along that process, to help them quantify some of those metrics and create a budget that would work for incentive travel.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, one other thing that I've always thought was incredibly important and stressed it to all of our clients, but is the involvement of leadership on site, active involvement. We have encouraged our leadership teams to meet every bus if they can. Like the first person they meet is the CEO or the national director of sales, whatever that top person is, or two or three of them standing there shaking their hands. And we've had some who are like, really, that's a long day. It's like, you know what? It's the best investment you'll ever make. They do it once. And the next year, like, okay, how are we doing that? When are we doing it? Can I have the schedule? Who's on that bus? Who's on this bus? They realize the value of it. So,
Absolutely.
And that was stressed that it was huge.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to me to remember sometime, luckily, not very often, but people would invest so much time and money and then not having the leadership present, which was ridiculous. But we did the first, I think it was the first ever, at least for probably for Europe, but certainly for Belgium. In 2000, remember, with Sony Music, we measure the impact of the incentive travel. And it was just phenomenal. You can clearly see the distributors that have been going with the company, those who have not, and what the market was doing. It was fascinating. But to your point, there's an impact on the culture of the company, not only on sales, for sure on sales, but not only on sales. And there's definitely an impact on the motivation and the, what you call the what's the right word that I'm looking at? Affectio societatis, that's the word. The love for the company from somebody who's working there. And I have a question for you. It's more a not deduction, but a bet on the future. I believe that because of COVID, because of working from home, because of the great resignation that everybody's talking about, companies will need more than ever to build culture, to bring people together, whether they're working in person or remotely, and that they will be using more and more incentive travel and creating unique experiences to do that. Is that wishful thinking, or is it something that you expect as well?
Oh, I fully expect it. And you know, there are articles already being written along that line, not always necessarily saying incentive travel, but that the culture piece of businesses was always important, but it's even more important now. And it is bringing those people together. So, you know, as I said, with Scythe, it's very incentive travel focused, but we did events of all kinds, as most of us in this industry do. And it's that, you mentioned experiences. It's incentive travel, yes, you're going to create that FOMO, you know, the person who's in Rome and at the Sistine Chapel, they don't want to miss next year's trip to Sydney, Australia, because they know how great it is. But that same experience isn't always delivered at meetings. But if you're bringing your people together for any type of event, it could be a Thursday night in Toronto, but it's got to be special. There's got to be something about it. So you're going to need that creativity that many of us in the industry bring to help clients do that and build that. It's not just another meeting, it's an experience, and they really get who I am. And I'm not going to miss the next one, which is great for incentive travel, but even just having great attendance at your meetings, it's important. So I fully agree, Eric. I think it's the culture piece will drive this. Obviously sales will always drive it, but the culture piece is more and more important. And long before COVID, we were seeing that through our incentive travel index, that the experience, always important, but personalizing experiences became more important. So the years of, you know, it's pretty hard to hide my gray hair here, but the years of, you know, the baby boomers all on a bus going around Paris and seeing the Louvre and then going somewhere else. And those days aren't entirely gone, because we're not all gone yet, but I hate to throw them all in the same group, but it's always used, you know, the Gen Ys and millennials and all that. They want more of a personal experience. So creating a greater variety of experiences available on a given day in Paris that they can sign up for. Now, they might not be alone because you can't have 300 different experiences. You could, but we're talking some pretty incredible budgets at this point. But you've maybe got 12 or 14 options that are going to hit that nerve of different people. And it becomes special to them in a different way than it did 15, 20 years ago.
Absolutely. And to your point, and I would offer that regardless of the generation, regardless of the experience, or regardless of the cultural background, human beings in general are thriving for social interaction and for unique experiences.
Yeah.
And I do remember one of the incentive we did to New York, where we basically rented a recording studio, and when people from 3 different generations, some have been 20 years in the company, some 2 years at the company, created a song, then had to record it in front of everyone, and then sang on the stage of the Hard Rock in Times Square, they still remember it. So those are things that, regardless of your background, you will love it.
Yeah.
And by the way, our hockey game in Vegas and those 2 fans that were completely cuckoo next to us, we will never forget that.
No, that's true. That was a very personalized experience for many people in the area.
Right. I'm sure they didn't do it on purpose, but who knows?
No, I didn't plant them there. It wasn't the plan.
Terry, thank you so much for taking the time today to share with us your experience, to speak about Scythe and the Scythe Foundation and the good work you're doing. My last question is always inspired actually by a friend from Toronto, Jason Gaignard. When we meet face to face in 1 year with a bottle of champagne, what are we going to celebrate?
Well, I think the obvious answer is, the fact that we're not wearing masks, and worried so much about variants, et cetera, et cetera. What are we going to celebrate? Well, that we're both still alive.
Yep.
That's always important.
Yes,
And oh boy, I haven't really thought about this. From an industry point of view, there's the continued growth in the areas that I've grown to love. Celebrate health. I don't want to get too, just the fact that we're healthy and happy, and any excuse to drink champagne, I'd come up with one.
I'm with you. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in person very soon.
For sure, Eric. Thanks very much. Talk to you soon.
Terry, thank you for taking the time, sharing with us some insights from the survey that the Scythe Foundation is currently doing, and also sharing some of nuggets from your experience of organizing incentive travel over the world and then selling your company. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to connect with me, please go on LinkedIn or join my Facebook group on www.evenbusinessformula.com/group, where we discuss everything related to meetings and events. And if you like this episode, please share it with your network. Thank you. Bye-bye.